For our last panel discussion of the day, we are taking a look at the role of artists in education. Artists Randy Williams, Dana Chandler, and William T. Williams are joined in conversation with Sandra Jackson-Dumont, the Frederick P. and Sandra P. Rose Chairman of Education at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Thank you all for being here and for talking to us this afternoon. Please join me in welcoming them.
Hello. I feel like in some ways, I grew up in church, and so there was like these moments when the preacher would say, I feel like, like fire is shut up in my bones. I feel that way. I feel like this antsy thing because these are three people I've respected so much, and I feel like sometimes when we have these kinds of conversations, it's so very particular, and right now we want to be particular, but I also don't want it to be wasted, that I am very excited and honored to share the stage with these incredible educators, artists, and all-around art historical figures. Let's see. So this panel, I feel, is extremely important on many levels because oftentimes people don't really call attention to the role that educators play in shaping the landscape. And there's also sometimes a divide between those who are making and those that are doing. And what we have here are three incredible individuals who actually make anyone who says those who cannot do teach seem stupid. So here we go. I would also say that there are a number of other people in this room, Elizabeth Alexander, Deb Willis, Daoud Bey, Floyd Coleman, people that are not here with us today that actually flank both of these worlds and then some. And so it is an important tradition in various communities that, of makers. I met Randy, actually I didn't meet Randy, I saw Randy. At the Metropolitan Museum of Art when I was an undergrad. And I didn't know him at all. I went to the museum and he was there teaching in the galleries and I was like, who is that? For a host of reasons. And then I was talking to Glenn Ligon and he was telling me that he took drawing with Randy Williams at the Met after school. And he was telling me a funny story earlier today that he had talked to his mom, and his mom said, oh, I don't know. Most of the artists I know are white and dead. And then he said, but there's this guy over at the Met, Randy Williams, who was teaching, and he was taking a class with him. And unbeknownst to Randy, he actually ended up planting some amazing seeds with many people that when they meet him now, he's like, I don't remember you, but, but the impact is incredible. I would say that William T. Williams, actually his show, curated by Valerie Mercer at the Studio Museum, was the first show I saw at that museum. I didn't tell you this when we spoke on the phone, but the work was, there's so many layers to this work that I really was very tempted. I was a young undergraduate, but I wanted to put my hand into the work, and I didn't. But it spoke to how his work visually calls people to it and makes you look extremely closely at the materiality of it, at the composition, the texture, and so thank you for that. And then Dana Chandler, I actually came across his work first when I was in graduate school at Howard University, and in a class taught by none other than the amazing Dr. Tritobia Benjamin, the late Tritobia Benjamin, and was really just blown away. I was just kind of like, at the same time I was listening to rap and hip hop and extreme things in that language, and I was like, oh wow, that actually can be manifested visually in a totally different realm. And so I'm really grateful to the radical nature of your work as well. So one of the questions I asked of them was how they came to teaching as people who are extremely committed to making, how they came to it and why they came to it. So I wanted to ask you all to maybe talk a little bit about that, because their answers are extremely different, and how teaching impacts and or doesn't impact your work. So you can go in any order.
Well, I need to warn you beforehand that I am extremely profane. I will not swear a whole lot, but the words will come. I'm loud, I'm vociferous, and if I have an opinion, I'll let you know about it. And so there are a couple of technical house cleaning things I need to do first. First, would all of the people in here who are 30 and under please stand? Come on, get on up. Get up. You are the most important people in my life. You are the reason I'm doing this. And the reason that you're important is because I've always known that I was going to do something in my life that would be important, and that my job was, once it was done and while it was being done, was to tell you about it. And so some of you already know that if I see you, I say hello and introduce myself. I don't wait for you to come up and introduce yourself, because some of you pretend that you're shy and you know, well, maybe I shouldn't talk to this person. Please talk to all of us who are here. You know, there's no guarantee that we're going to be here tomorrow. So please talk to all of us. If you have any questions that you need to ask about anything and you don't ask them, that's your fault. You know, the only bad question is the one you didn't ask. Okay? I've always been a teacher, obviously, because that's all I really want to do in my life, is to create stuff and teach. Because I know I need to pass this information on, and I also know, as has been proven by, where is she? Oh, there she is. Yes, you. You know, this woman is so shy about praise. It's so funny to me, you know. Would you please stand? See, look at her, look at her. And her co-creator, where are you hiding at? I know you, oh, there she is. These are power women, okay? And one of the things that some of you white people are beginning to find out is that black women are very powerful. They're very powerful. So the second group of people that I've been most excited talking to have always been black women. Because black women will tell you what you need to know, whether you want to know it or not. Thank you for that. I've always appreciated that. My mother was that kind of person, and my grandmother was that kind of person, and my daughters are that kind of people, and my granddaughters will tell me, I mean, my granddaughters are those kind of people. And it's been the most marvelous thing in my life, has been being able to create my work, as you can see, with young people and black women in mind. I love you all. You have no ideas. I taught at Simmons College in Boston for 33 years. It is a women's college, so I was in my element. I was happy to be there. I was first their brother, then I was their father, then I was their grandfather, and all of those periods of time in those 33 years were great for me. I really loved them because they knew I was real, so they were real with me. And you know, once black women decide that you're real, they're real. And you'll learn a lot of good things because of that. Also, the other thing I wanted to say in terms of house cleaning is there are some other African-American women and also artists, not just women, but artists in general, who are here. I hope that they've put some information on their shirts so that you will know they're artists. Once again, if you don't talk to them, that's your fault. Please take the time to talk to Adrian, who's sitting right there. Adrian Horde. Stand up so they can see you. Okay. She is an artist, and she's someone you need to know. So if you don't talk to them while you're young, do that. The third cleanup item is start collecting the work of African-American artists now. You will be surprised to discover You can afford the work of African American artists, whether it's just a print, a little print, maybe a greeting card or something. Collect it now so you will learn how to be a collector. It's very important to your life, otherwise you will have crap on your walls and your house will look like shit, okay? So hear me very clearly when I say this. You know, there's a great black woman collector in the room. I'm not going to announce who she is because ain't nobody's business unless she wants to tell it. But she's sitting very close by, trying not to be seen, and I'm watching her do that. But, you know, if she wants to make herself known, she will. The reason that I'm mentioning her is because she's one of the more important people here. She collects art, okay? A lot of you in the audience go and see art, and you praise the artist, and you don't buy shit. Stop that, please. Do you know we have bills? We have kids. And I'll tell you something about, I don't know about your children, but my children, they don't care about my art much. You know, even though they're 50-something on down, they don't care. Where's the food? Where's the money? I'm cold. Have you got any money, Dad? Okay? The same as everybody else in here. So support us, please, with something other than a compliment. I cannot buy a damn thing with your compliments. Okay?
Dana.
So respect your elders.
I am.
Did you like that? Respect your elders? Oh, it's about time. Anyway, so do those kind of things because it's very, very important to us. Now, having said those things, I'll probably say some other things nobody wants me to say, like I care, like I really care. And yeah, that was it.
Randy's going to follow.
Oh,
Yes.
Go ahead, Randy.
Hard to follow, but I will try. Those that can't do, teach. I've heard that most of my life, not only in terms of being a teacher, just in terms of being a black person. But one of the things that I realize is that those that teach do very well. Because being in a situation where you are invited with other people makes you that much smarter. And I've only grown more invested by being in the rooms with other people. My passion right now is spending time with little children. That's my joy and that's my life. I had no ambitions of ever being an artist. And I don't know if I am an artist. I certainly make things. I certainly enjoy making things. I realize that I can't live unless I make something. So it is a part of my entity and my being. But I started out at NYU, and I was pre-med. And I fell in love with the art department. I had never taken an art class in my life. And it was the people that interest me, nothing else. And I had somewhat of a crush on a teacher by the name of Audrey Flack, a wonderful artist. And I decided to take a class with her, only so I could be close and look at her. And I spent most of my time looking at her and not at my paper. And something happened that changed my life. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and she sent us home and said, make a piece of art about it. And we returned the next week, and most of the students in the room had done these awful paintings and drawings of Martin Luther King. And that, to me, didn't affect me in any way that I felt was important to his legacy or his stature as this incredible individual. And all I could do was take a piece of cardboard and scratch into the cardboard. And I just wanted to rip because I felt as if something was ripped from me. And that's what I did. And it was the last thing she looked at because I put it at the very end. And she picked it up and she said, I understand this, which surprised me. She said, I understand that this has such a quality of feeling, of empathy, of sympathy. And she understood that piece of cardboard, and that day changed my life. And from that moment to this moment, I've been making art. When I told my family that I was changing my major and I was not going to be a doctor, they panicked. And, but it was a decision that I have never, ever regretted. I wake up in the morning and I think to myself, I'm the most fortunate person in the world. I can make something, and I'm defined by what I make. And then a really interesting thing happened. I've been at the Met forever. I think I was born at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And I have an addiction to it, and an addiction to one painting in particular, and that is a self-portrait of Rembrandt. That's another story that I won't tell you, but I realized at a conference once that we were sitting in a room much like this, and there were curators. You had people that were from all of the important offices in the museum, and they were all talking about their exciting jobs. And then they arrived to me and they said, well, tell us about what you do. And I work with young people, I work with adults, I work with everybody, and I love doing it. And beyond that, I don't know what else I could tell you. And then something dawned on me, and I said, if the museum was on fire, I would probably burn trying to figure out, do I save a Rembrandt or a Romeo Bearden? And I realized that what I would save would be people. And as precious as paintings are and sculptures and period rooms, I would be moving people out of the museum to safety. That led to another conclusion for me, and that was, for me, everything is art. I make art, I love making art, and my teaching is also an art form. And I don't distinguish between the two. When I walk into a classroom, what I'm trying to do with a group of people is to create a work of art. And I think, what more important of a relationship or a collaboration than working with other individuals and trying to impart to them some of the things that are important to you. So for me, there's no distinction. But I certainly feel that being in a room, being with a group of people, having a conversation with them, when I leave, I feel somewhat selfish. And people are always saying that, you're so generous. And I'm laughing, thinking, really? I'm the most selfish person in the world because I get so much from so many. And I think that both the idea of art making and teaching are one and the same.
Thank you, Randy. What was the question?
Was how did you arrive at teaching, and what drew you to it? And what's the relationship between your own practice and?
I arrived at teaching because I got a telephone call from Pratt Institute, which I had graduated from when I came out of graduate school, came back to New York, and I got a call from Pratt asking me if I would come back and teach there. I accepted the job. I taught there for 6 months. And then I got another telephone call from Philip Pearlstein, the figurative painter. And he asked if I would be interested in coming to Brooklyn College. And he assured me that it would be a working situation where I could remain an artist and paint. And I said, sure. He assured me. He took me to the president's office. The president made a commitment to me that my teaching would not interfere with my studio. The commitment they made to me was kept by 4 different presidents, one after the other as one left. What was unbeknown to me is I was entering an art department that had a very long history. Rothko had taught there, Reinhardt had taught there, Philip Pearlstein was there, Lee Bontekoe was there. A long list of really fabulous artists was teaching there. They gave me Ed Reinhardt's desk, and I always refer to it as the black desk. And for those of you that don't know Reinhardt, he painted black on black paintings. So I shared an office with 3 people. Jimmy Ernest, which was Max Ernest's son, with a man named Harry Holtzman. Harry Holtzman was the man who had brought Mondrian to this country and was the executive of his estate and probably knew more about Mondrian than just about anyone in the world. Philip Pearlstein was the other person in the office, and another painter named Alan D'Arcangelo. There were older painters on the faculty that had taught at the Bauhaus and were the foundation and the people who started the department. What was most important, though, is that there were an extraordinary group of art historians that were there. Really, really, really good art historians. So it provided a kind of environment for me to learn how to teach, which was the most difficult part. The first thing that I began to realize is if you're going to impart information to a student, you have to start with the knowledge base that the student has, the skill level that the student has. And for me, when you're teaching, if you have 30 students, you have 30 different classes that you're teaching. And you have to work with that student, develop their sensibilities, their temperament, work with all of those kind of components. I both enjoyed that and hated it because I was exhausted when I went home. The part that I enjoyed is watching young people develop as artists. There were 2 rules in the class. You had to stand when you painted, and you couldn't look at my work. I would have absolutely no conversation about my work whatsoever in the class. I didn't care what you painted. The only thing that I was going to talk about is the paint itself. How to put the stuff on the surface, how to take it off, the history of putting it on and taking it off. Primarily because if you think about a painting class, normally it's 3 hours. So if it's 3 hours time 15 times, that's 45 hours. That's basically 2 days. Now, what can you teach a person about painting in 2 days? Not very much. The other requirement, there was 1 painting, and that was it. You had to paint on that painting all semester. The first 2 weeks, you put it on and you totally scraped it down. And it was involvement with the tools themselves, finding out something about the tools. Thereafter, you were on your own. You had to show up on time, stay as long as it took, and work on the painting. I never talked about the content of what they were trying to do. I never talked about politics in the class. The only thing I talked about was the paint. Put it on, take it off. It's that simple. That's how simple painting is in making art. You try something, it doesn't work, you try something else. That's how I got into teaching. It was that simple. I love painting. I love art. I enjoyed teaching because, in essence, I was a student. Every student that came in was teaching me something. Every student that came in was reminding me of when I started. The difference was that I probably started much earlier than they did and had more information at the time that I got to college. A little background. I started art school when I was 14. I started drawing from plaster casts first, then a live model. I spent 2 hours a day all through high school at the Museum of Modern Art. The Modern was an extension of our classroom. The high school I went to was on 51st Street in Lexington Avenue, just around 3 or 4 blocks away. The first 2 years of that school, you were there. The latter 2 years, you were on 79th Street and 3rd Avenue. And the Met was 5 blocks away. So I spent, from when I was, 14 or 15 to 18 in those 2 institutions every day for a very, very long time. So I basically was in art school from when I was 14 until I was in my 20s. the thing that I understood when students came into the classroom is they're not going to have that experience. They're going to have that long knowledge base. The best advice I ever got was from Romy Bearden when I came to New York. And he said that painting is an old man's game. And I always remembered that. And I think what he meant, it takes time to figure out what you're interested in, to develop the skills, the physical skills to do what you want. And then it takes time to do those things. And you get better at it as you get older. I'm pretty sure that's what he was trying to say to me. Two of the artists that are in this exhibition were really mentors to me and helpful. And that was Norman Lewis and Bearden, both which I met early on and were extraordinarily helpful. The other person was Jake Lawrence, whom I met when I was 14. And I'm going astray a little bit, but the classroom was always sacred to me in terms of, it was a college that was generous enough to me to leave me alone, let me do what I wanted in the classroom, never interfered. It didn't matter the way I was running the class because the students were producing. I think, as Dana said, this relationship with students is, it's a big responsibility. And you have young people that you're working with, and you have to provide a support network for them to develop. I don't have anything to say. Yeah, I'm going on. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
I think it's wonderful because I think what all of you are speaking to is that this is serious business, you know. The fact that a lot of people treat education, particularly in the artistic process and the making process, somewhat frivolously. It's like, oh, you're a great painter, so you can also teach, you know, that there are some skills necessary to navigate those spaces. And I think it would be helpful to talk a little bit about that, but also the fact that each of you have maintained very active studio practices. You talked to me about the fact that at Brooklyn College, all your classes were in studios. Like you didn't teach in a classroom per se. Like most of your classes were in studio spaces with students.
They were. There were studio spaces. I was lucky enough to teach in a college that I didn't have to do any kind of administrative work. They promised me that when they hired me that I would never have
Everybody's
to do it.
like, woo!
When I had obligations in my studio, I would basically go to the president and say, you know, this semester I can't do that. And he would just tell the chairman, let him teach 8 hours this year. And that was the way it was for the 40 years that I worked there. They made a promise to me that I would be able to make art. They would provide an environment where I could make art. And what they wanted from me was to develop a generation of young artists. And that was the environment. I totally enjoyed it.
Yeah. Dana, maybe you and Randy want to talk a little bit about like that balance that you all struck, or in some cases, maybe it bled a little bit between the spaces.
Well, if you want to be a teacher and an artist, you are going to work very hard, and you're going to work very long at what it is that you do, because you will not be able to create art if you don't give it the time that it needs, and you will not be able to teach if you don't give it the time that it needs. The question that you asked or said that turned into a question, those who can't teach, the reality is that those who can't. You know, it's really just that simple. You know, if you have to have skills to teach, and you have to be very careful with those skills that you have. You have to be a very loving person, because you're going to aggravate the hell out of your students, and your students are going to aggravate the hell out of you. And that's just fine. You know, please expect that. So for me, teaching was always a very exciting process. I was not an administrator. In my institution, they tried to make me into an administrator. and I ignored them most of the time. Other professors used to get very angry at me and ask the administration, why is it you allow him to do thus and so? And it wasn't a question of them allowing me to do thus and so. There was nothing they could do about it, you know, really. They tried. I was almost fired a number of times until they really got what my point was, that I was going to teach and I was going to create art. And that was what I was going to do. And if you didn't like it, I was going to tell you what you could do with what it is you didn't like, which I did a lot of. I once cussed out my president in public. He didn't appreciate that. There's somebody back there who probably did the same thing. But if you are a professional, you cannot allow people to tell you what to do with your profession. Amen. There you go. You have to be strong when you teach because everybody's coming for you. Did you hear what I just said, young people? You have to be strong in what it is you do because everybody's coming for you. So you better know your stuff. Because if you don't know your stuff, that's where people try to get you. And one of the things that I was going to be clear on in my life when I was a young person is whatever I decided to finally do, I was going to know my shit. So if you came for me, I feel sorry for you. Because, you know, you were not going to win this struggle. Also, it's very important for you to make friends all across the campus or the institution in which you teach, from the custodians on up. Everybody has a job to do. Everybody's job is valid. Do not be so uppity. You know, that's a word that we black folks know very well. Do not be so uppity to think you all that. So that you don't have time to talk to the custodian. I talk to the custodian if I need supplies. Guess where I got them from? And it wasn't, what is it with the 5-minute thing over there? I see you, Moira. You know, we are famous black artists. Oh, I got you. That's why half of this conversation is going to have to occur after this is over. And if you don't come talk to us, that's your problem, because there really are 3 brilliant men on this stage. I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm real serious. There are 3 very brilliant men on this stage. I don't care about your shyness about that. 3 brilliant men on this stage. Come talk to us and talk to the other artists who are around here. I've got to do one housekeeping thing that you all not going to appreciate. My website is, where's your pens? Where's your pens? No, I'm serious. Get your pens out. So
They're
that
ready.
you can, come on, get your pens out. Because all you're seeing is a couple of pieces of my work. Where do you see my other stuff? GetALivingLegend.com. That's it. And you ask them about their websites. I know they got them. You know, get all the information. You young people, please get all the information you can, because I promise you, 10 years down the line, somebody will mention one of our names, and you will make the mistake of saying, oh my gosh, I had a chance to talk to William T. Williams and Randy Williams, and I didn't. Okay, your kids are going to look at you like, you know. So make sure you take care of that as one of the things that you do. Is there some other question that you have?
How about any final, we have 4 minutes left. And
Well, you
so-
know, one of the things that, you know, I'm listening to these gentlemen, and I agree with them completely, but my course was remarkably different because I chaired an art department for 25 years. And people would come up to me and they would say, how can you do that and be an artist and work at the Metropolitan Museum of Art? And my explanation is that everything I do is art. When I do a budget, it's very different from what people expect. And this is what you get. And I think that running an art department for me was a matter of solving problems. And students would come in and say, well, I have a problem. I say, we don't have a problem. We have a solution to a problem. Mm-hmm. And you know, it never affected my work. And the one thing that I think that I was blessed with is that I don't sleep. And I'm really serious. I mean, people think that I'm joking. I do not sleep. And people say, well, why don't you sleep? Because I'm sleeping right now. Like I'm relaxing. This could be a dream, you know? So I'll go to I'm working on a watercolor in my hotel right now. But I agree. I mean, it is very difficult work. And another thing that's really important about teaching, and I absolutely agree, we tell people that they should go deep, they should feel, they should have some understanding about themselves. When you do that, as a teacher and as an artist, you have a responsibility. You cannot then send them away and expect them to make it on their own. I am still in touch with people that I've taught 40 years ago. Because that is another one of our responsibilities. We're telling people to do things that most disciplines don't tell people to do. And that is to find a sense of identity. And quite often, that could be a very scary prospect.
Yeah. And also, teaching for most of us is extremely personal. You know, you become more than just a student to us. Well, I should say for myself at least. My students became my children. They became my sisters or my daughters or my granddaughters, depending upon which year we're talking in. I always tell them things like, you know, if you're having problems with your boyfriend, come get me, you know. And I meant it. You know, I was very serious, and I am not a small man. I will straighten your shit out. You know? Because as far as one of my jobs is to be protective of my students, you know. I don't want you showing up with a black eye because some idiot punched you in the face. You know, my daughters knew that. What did my daughters used to, oh yes, they say, you know, we hate being your daughter. And I said, why? You know, I knew exactly what they were going to say. I said, why? Why would you hate this, you know? Says nobody wants to go out with us. You know, for real. You know, I was known all across the community, you know, you can mess with somebody else's daughter, but you better not mess with mine because I will come and get you. And I actually did that, you know. So that was why I was known all across. They began to know that at Simmons. These young people are your responsibility. You can't just walk away from them in their hour of need. If they need something and you know how to get it for them, get it for them. If they don't know something you think they ought to know, tell them. They will sometimes hate your guts. Who gives a shit? Tell them anyway, okay?
And on that note, you do not want Professor Chandler to come for you.
No, you didn't.
So I want to say thank you all for helping build a deeper community of thinkers, a deeper community of seers and doers, and people that are really invested in this practice, and a responsible group of creative folks have come out of the work that you all have done, and we are so grateful. Thank you for your labor.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.